I'm going to show you a system I built using free tools that help special education teachers keep track of their students' assessment data. The problem with using lots of different types of assessments to show progress is that it means we have data all over the place. There's different platforms like FastBridge, Accelerated Reader, there's state testing platforms, and then there's paper assessments we use that don't even have a platform. And we need to use all of this data from each of these sources to report on students' progress towards their goals. So what we end up with is a bunch of written down assessment data on paper charts. Then when it's time to report on progress, it takes a bunch of work to get all the data in the right place and get the right information on it. So the goal was to build an easy to use system that can show all of the important information for students so that teachers can spend less time on their paperwork. So when a student takes an assessment, the first part of this system is a Google form. Teacher, a paraprofessional, even the student can sit down and they can choose a student name, they can choose the date the assessment happened, they can choose the type of assessment that happened, and then we can input the data. The only page that comes up is the input data for this assessment. Right? When I click submit, it goes into a spreadsheet. I'm going to show that in a second. But if I would have picked a different type of assessment, I would have gotten a different list of inputs, and I only see the list of inputs that's relevant for the assessment that I took. This makes it really easy for a teacher to just bookmark this page, and whenever a student takes an assessment, they put in the data, right? Or to give that link to the paraprofessional or the teaching assistant in their room, and whenever a student takes an assessment, that paraprofessional is in charge of putting the data in. So we put this data in, right? We say we assess this list, 78% correct, and we submit. We can click here to submit another response really quickly if we have a bunch of students taking assessments, or we can look at our spreadsheet here. And what happens in the spreadsheet is we get all of this data in our input just like we normally would in a Google spreadsheet, Google form combination here. But the nice part about having this data in our spreadsheet is that we can do other things with it. For example, we can build a single student dashboard where all of the assessment data for this student shows up on one page. I can choose different students and it'll pull up the data for each of those students, which is really nice if I'm having like a parent meeting or a team meeting or a grade level meeting or an administrative meeting or some sort of intervention meeting, and I need to print off some data, right? I want to see how this student is doing, so I can just print this off and bring it with me to the meeting. Or if I have my computer, I can just have it right in front of me and I can tell everybody how my students are doing and how well I have their data tracked. Another nice part of this is that often when we're progress reporting, we don't just want to report on the last time they took this test. We might want to know the average of the last few times they've taken the test, or maybe the last 2 times they've taken the test. And so we can set this up on this dashboard so that it'll give you the right metrics so that you know exactly how your students are doing across their entire week, month, quarter, whatever it's got to be. All right, another nice part of this is once we have our data into a spreadsheet, we can build a sort of grade book where we have all of our students' data all in the same place. We can sort based on who's in the same F&P level, who's in the same percentiles for FastBridge, anything like that. You can really customize this whatever you want. Another thing that we can do, and this is once we have this data in here, is that we can move this data around because we own it. So let's say I wanted to write progress reports for these 5 students, right? Normally when I write an IEP, I'd have to report on their current levels of performance towards their goals, right? And so I want to write these students' IEPs. So with the help of a Google extension, I can go up here, and as long as I have a template that I'm writing this into, because it's pretty much the same report every time, it just needs individual student data into it. I can hook up my Google document to this. I can add markers into my template saying this is where I want the student's name, this is where I want the MCA score, this is where I want the FastBridge score. I can customize the report based on the student in a bunch of different ways. This is where I want the fluency level, really anything like that. And I can get this data to pump into this template and create a new template for each student, a new progress report. And then you can see once they're done, I have an individual progress report for each of my students. It has their specific data into here. It's customized for them, and I can copy and paste this into SPED forms or whatever reporting software I'm using, wherever their report goes. Or I can just print it out and send it to parents. So if you're good with Google Sheets, after looking at all of this, looking at things like this, looking at the forms and whatnot, you can probably build something like this for yourself now that you've seen it.